You're going to resonate with today's story if you have ever set a boundary with a parent or an in-law and they just completely disregarded it. Not only do they disregard it, but when you go and try to set a boundary with this parent or this in-law that decides to completely disrespect you, they actually make you feel pretty terrible for setting a boundary in the first place. And if you're nodding along, you're really gonna like this story because I have some really helpful tips. But what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna share with you, we're gonna call them Tammy and Jack, they're husband and wife. I'm gonna share with you Tammy and Jack's story. We are going to rewind a little bit into their story so that I can pick out the parts that they did right and just a couple things that I would have done a little bit differently. And then I'm going to share with you something that I've done for years, which is how I just reframe how I set a boundary or communicate a boundary with people in my life who I believe are emotionally immature. Now, if you don't know that term, basically an emotionally immature person is like when they get overwhelmed by emotion or stressed out, they operate like with the same skills like a 3-year-old. So you just imagine you're looking at a 55, 60-year-old adult, but emotionally, like their impulsive reactions, the way they respond to being told no or a limit being said, it's like you're personally attacking them. I want you to imagine there is a 3-year-old like doing the levers in their brain because that is the same skill set that they have. Well, over the years, I've tweaked a formula that I use, and I was able to create a framework so that I can teach you. That way, you can just plug in any situation you have and use it in your life, like replicate it over and over and over. So I'll use this story to share that framework with you, so stay until the end. Here's the story of Tammy and Jack. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. It's early September. The air is just starting to get a little bit crisper. So the windows are cracked open, the breeze is coming in, and you are in the middle of hosting your son's 4th birthday. The house smells like freshly baked cinnamon rolls and that citrusy cleaner that we all love. Blue balloons and streamers are taped all over the wall. And then there's this banner that reads, "Happy Birthday, Benny." We're going to name your kid Benny, across the mantle. Now you pick up a dish to take it to the kitchen, and as you're walking by the living room, you hear the birthday boy shriek, like scream with excitement, that high-pitched squeal that our kids make when they get like the best gift in the world. Now your heart doesn't jump for joy. Like it absolutely sinks because that scream, that squeal, wasn't one of a boy getting a puzzle or a book or a tool set like you had agreed upon. It's something different. So you make slow, deliberate steps towards the living room to kind of figure out what's going on. And as you make your way down the hallway, those blue balloons just kind of bob in the air as you pass by, and you turn the corner, and there it is, your son standing in the middle of the living room, clutching a brand new iPhone. Across the room, you see your mother-in-law. She's just beaming. She's so happy. And she says, "Now you can call Grandma whenever you want to." But it's in that baby voice that kind of makes your skin crawl. And then she literally locks eyes with you and says, "What Grandma says goes." To understand this moment, we need to rewind because this obviously isn't the first time that this mother-in-law, we're going to call her Joyce, has crossed the line. It started when the baby was born. Tammy, this is the listener, and the mother-in-law Joyce, they used to be close. But then as soon as Tammy became a mom, everything, like literally everything changed. There was one time in front of everybody, there was a party. She actually accused Tammy of being selfish for stepping away to breastfeed their child. She said, "Why don't you pump it into a bottle so we can all enjoy the experience?" Like she literally called her selfish for wanting to have that precious like bonding time with her baby. There's a plethora. They gave me so many examples of like just passive aggressive comments, times when Joyce has just undermined their parenting altogether. But this time was supposed to be different. They had a chat well before this party on what boundaries that Jack needed to set with his mom. He needed to tell her, don't bring your little dog, because the last time they had a party and her dog came, he got really overwhelmed and messed like 3 different times on their carpet. They had to get it cleaned. It was just a mess. And they also decided to tell Joyce no big gifts like tech gifts, because they're just not ready for their kid to be introduced to screens yet. Now, during this talk on the back patio, Jack was definitely on board. He's like, yes, I'm going to go talk to my mom. But did he? Did he really? Yeah, he tried. He really did. So in Jack's words, he told his mom about the dog. She came back with just dramatic tears.
Like, oh my God, he's like my baby. I'm all alone. Would you tell me this if I had a child?
Like, it was just like this fire hose back at him. He didn't know what to do. He literally just felt like it. He describes it like it's heavier than guilt. It feels like I'm the worst son in the world. And he caved. So he caved on the dog. He didn't communicate that with Tammy, but he also really felt like she understood the gift. She got the gift. Like, don't do anything with, screens. Just keep it simple. He thought, like, we got it good there. If she brings a dog, hopefully, like, Tammy will be okay. Okay, so let's pause here and let's talk about what Tammy and Jack did right. And just a couple things they could have done differently. Because here's where boundaries get misunderstood. A boundary isn't something you say. A boundary is something you do. It is a self-imposed rule or limit that you control 100% of the time. So if somebody doesn't respect it, even though you want them to, you have a plan in the back of your head the entire time how you're going to mind it. So in this situation, what would minding their boundaries have looked like? Well, let's talk about the dog. On the back patio, Tammy and Jack could have said, okay, well, let's say she shows up with the dog. What are we going to do? Jack would have a plan to tell his mom, turn your, cute behind around and go take the pup home. Like, that was what we had discussed. So have her take the dog home before the party. Or if the weather is nice, like it was that morning, it was cooler weather, the dog could just chill in the car. So in real time, what this would have looked like, Joyce shows up to the party with the dog, Jack meets her at the door, and he says, oh shoot, Mom, remember, Scotty had to stay home today. Like, we're gonna have to have you run him home quick. Don't worry, like, we have plenty of time before the party starts. Now, no matter what Joyce does, no matter how big that reaction is and how bad she makes Jack feel, he needs to stay calm and then simply repeat the boundaries. So he needs to just say, I understand that he is like your child and you really wanted him to come, but again, I was very clear on this, no pets. So you need to run him home quick. We won't start the party without you. Or if that was a long drive or something and the weather was fine, she didn't want to go all the way home, and whatever, he could chill in the car. So those are 2 ways that they could take action to mind their boundary in terms of the dog. Now, what about the gift? Like, what do you do when your child actually has the gift in hand? It's a freaking phone and it's a 4-year-old. What are you going to do? Well, on the back patio again, Tammy and Jack could have said, okay, so what if she doesn't listen about the tablet, or like she actually gives them tech? What are we going to do? Well, you still have full control. Even if, grandparents don't respect like your parenting choices, it's harder. It's annoying, it's frustrating, you don't feel like respected, but you still have control 100%. So they could decide to give the gift back, or they could put the gift up until they're ready to introduce their child to screens. So for me, if I was in Tammy and Jack's shoes, I would let the party go on, knowing dang well that phone is not staying with us. So as soon as my child goes down for his nap, is distracted, whatever, as parents, we're gonna go talk to Joyce. So that looks like Jack saying, hey Mom, thank you so much for the generous gift. That was like really, really thoughtful of you. Since we're not ready for him to have tech or screens yet, do you want to hold on to it until he gets older, or do you want us to? So basically you're just giving her a choice, but you're also letting her know, like, we were very clear on that limit. And then I would also add in the conversation, just in general, we really hope next time we can coordinate on the gifts a little bit, like work together. That way you and, we'll just call the kid Benny, you and Benny can play with the toy in real time, and he doesn't have to go through the stress and sadness of getting a toy and then having it being taken away. See how, like, no matter what Joyce chooses, like whether she chooses to respect their boundaries or completely ignore them, they're in complete control and they can protect their peace the entire time. But here's the part that makes it really hard for someone like Jack. Jack isn't just dealing with a domineering mom. He is dealing with years of being conditioned. He is probably taught right from birth, like he needs to keep his mom happy. And Joyce, she knows like just the right buttons to push to make him feel like the worst. Like we'll just call it guilt, but it's something more. I bet if you talk to somebody that was raised by an emotionally immature parent, they would probably describe it as shame. Like they probably feel like I am bad if I don't make them happy. It's wild how different it is. It's called parentification, what happens when a parent expects this from a child, but it's deeply, deeply ingrained. It can be reversed. It does take time, but I just want you to know like the level of guilt an adult child feels when they have an emotionally immature or is raised by an emotionally immature parent, it's more intense than just like the normal guilt. So for Jack, one of the biggest things for him is when he goes to set a boundary with his mom, he just doesn't want to make her cry. Like that's his goal. The first thing that Jack needs to do is get a better goal going into the conversation. Like right now, he's focusing on not making her cry, but that's like her go-to to manipulate him. And he can't control Joyce's reaction at all. So instead, Jack needs to set a goal that he can actually control, like I'm going to communicate my boundary, I'm going to stick to the script, and I'm going to mind my boundary afterwards. Jack also needs to understand, like, why are Tammy and I even setting this boundary? Like, for example, having the dog over, like, why is this important to put my mom through that? Well, it's going to cause us stress during the party and a heck of a lot of stress and money after the party. And the gift thing, they're just not ready for their kid to have screens. They want him to have a chance to really grow his imagination before, it just kind of gets taken over by tech. So by having this clear understanding of why the boundary is so important, this is going to keep Jack grounded in the moment when he's telling his mom and she's having like all these emotions, and having a clear goal that he can control when those emotions get really, really intense. It helps him stay like focused and move through that conversation successfully. Okay, so now let's get to the way that I communicate boundaries differently with emotionally immature people. A framework that I've created that will help Jack and you communicate with anyone that is emotionally immature is something I like to call the CLEAR framework. This is just like a step-by-step guide that specifically is all about communicating with people who tend to react in really big, immature, dramatic, manipulative ways. So let me walk you through what this looks like for their situation. I want you to pay attention to how the way I'm communicating my boundary is rooted in attachment. So I'm making them feel loved and secure with me, like not rejected and abandoned, because that's their biggest fears, is that they're going to be rejected because they're not good enough or abandoned. So I'm trying to root the conversation in security. And then the second part is I am reframing the boundary in a way like this is how it's going to benefit you if you choose to come alongside. Because as a lot of us know, especially if you have experience being raised or even just married or in a family for a while now with someone who is emotionally immature, it's like they have blinders on. It's my way or the highway. So I have found if I sweeten the deal a little bit by showing the benefit for them, like respecting it, it does increase just a little bit my likelihood that they'll come alongside me, even though we know it doesn't matter if they respect it or not. It sure is nice. So this is what CLEAR stands for. C is communicate their value. So grounding it right in attachment. So communicate their value. L is your limit or your boundary. Now, when you state this, you want to keep it very, very concise because you don't want to overwhelm their little system. Then E is explain how the boundary will benefit them. A is provide assurance. I'll tell you how this plays in when I do the script. And then R is repeat your boundary. So here's a script example about the no tech gift. Jack could say, Mom, I love how much you care about Benny. You have always been such such an important part in his life. So we have decided not to introduce tech gifts yet. We just want to keep him screen-free for now. That way, when you're over, Benny can just focus on you and he's not distracted with a screen. This is when you are going to get that pushback. So right now is when she's going to do an impulsive reaction. She's going to just be dramatic and throw something like out of left field. Something like,
"So you think I'm going to get pushed out over an electronic?"
That's when you provide the assurance. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. We just want to protect that bond that you have with Benny for as long as we can. Like, he's growing up so fast and he's not going to need us, forever. So again, puzzles, books, things you can put together. Just make sure it doesn't have boundaries or a screen. Like, we'll see you Saturday. Now some real talk for Jack. Because Joyce isn't going to accept this boundary without a fight, she is going to cry, she is going to guilt trip, she's going to throw everything she can at Jack. We need to arm him with some coping skills. So when this happens, Jack needs to know that he can, one, take a break. If his mom starts crying, he can say, "Mom, you're really upset right now. Why don't we just take a break and talk about this later?" He can, too, step away and just take a breather. So he can go get a drink, go to the bathroom, whatever, and just remind himself that my mom's reactions are about her inability to process emotions. They have nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my boundary. So just remember, she's got that 3-year-old in her brain managing all those controls. So just remember, you're looking at your mom, but that's what's actually happening. Once Jack comes back from his break, he should reassure Joyce and then repeat his boundary. No matter what, he needs to hold the line. Pause. If you're getting any value out of this video, would you please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button? That way you know right away when more videos like this are posted. Here's what I want Jack and anyone else in his shoes to remember. You must pick guilt every time over resentment. Even though guilt right now feels like shame, like you're the worst kid in the world, still choose guilt and learn how to cope through it, because I promise you, from experience, it does get easier and easier over time. You will definitely feel awful when you set boundaries with someone like Joyce because she's trained you to feel awful, but it will pass. I promise. Resentment, on the other hand, that sticks, it festers, it erodes, it breaks down the best relationships. And right now, Tammy, she's actually starting to resent Jack. She's resenting him for not setting appropriate boundaries with his mom. And that resentment will do the exact same thing to their marriage. Now remember, just a quick reminder, boundaries are not about controlling other people. Boundaries are not about changing other people. Boundaries are about protecting ourselves, our peace, and our relationships. And a boundary is an action. It's not something that you just say and hope they respect it. It's an action you take to protect your limit. So if you've ever found yourself in Tammy's shoes, Jack's shoes, whatever, we have created a free guide for you. So remember the CLEAR formula, that step-by-step way to kind of frame boundaries differently when you communicate it to emotionally immature people. Well, I have put that into a guide. Not only do I explain what emotional immaturity is, why it feels impossible to actually set boundaries with them, like the chaos and the backlash that comes, I also take you through, I believe it's 4 very highly relatable examples, so you can really get used to the framework and then plug in your own situations. I'm not telling you that this is magic and that they're not going to have these extreme reactions to you when you set a limit. I'm not saying that at all. What I am telling you, though, is that I have been using this for years now, and there is definitely something to the 2 parts that I've included in this framework, which is really grounding the conversation in security, make them feel secure. If you haven't already, or if you're not very familiar with attachment theory, look that up. So I'm making them feel secure. That is their biggest fear in life, is being rejected and not good enough. And then the second component is how this will benefit them. Those 2 things married together have awarded me more success. It gets me further into the conversation without their defenses getting activated, and it has led to less chaos coming my way. So I really hope that helps you. It's in the description below. And if it does, please come back. There's an email in there. Let us know your success and stories so that we can share and celebrate with you. Okay, now it's your turn. What advice do you have for Tammy and Jack? Make sure to add your perspective in the comments below. Okay, friend, until next time, make sure you keep minding your boundaries. Bye.